Hi, I'm Allie Hamilton, and I'm so happy to welcome you to the Come As You Are podcast. Every week, we'll be talking about some aspect of healing, usually around childhood wounds and complicated familial relationships. The topics will always coincide with my personal essay of the week, and this will be a place where we can take a deep dive together. I'm so thrilled you've joined me and delighted for you to always come as you are. Hi there. Hi there. Welcome to our talk. Today, the topic is, won't you be my neighbor? And if you are Gen X, and even a little bit older, then you probably don't need me to tell you that is a Mr. Rogers Neighborhood reference. Won't you be my neighbor? And I was writing about all kinds of things this week. I went to see It's a Wonderful Life on Christmas Eve. They play it near us here in Santa Monica every Christmas Eve, and it's become a tradition. And if that film does not put you in the holiday spirit, then it's just probably not going to be your year for holiday spirit. It's just such a beautiful film. Frank Capra, and Jimmy Stewart, and it's an incredible cast. And if you haven't somehow seen it, I really can't recommend it enough. But it got me thinking about another Jimmy Stewart film, which is one of my favorite films of all time, Harvey. And if you haven't seen Harvey, I have to recommend Harvey as well. Harvey is about a man named Elwood P. Dowd, played by Jimmy Stewart. And he has a best friend named Harvey, who is this 6-foot tall white rabbit that no one can see except Elwood. And Harvey is a puka, which is in Irish folklore, a creature that can appear to some people, and it can be a beneficial, positive creature or not. Anyway, Elwood has this best friend, Harvey, who's with him all the time. No one can see Harvey but Elwood. Jimmy Stewart loved this film so much and loved these characters so much that he doodled Harvey for the rest of his life. He would sketch Harvey on, napkins and just scraps of paper, and then he would write Harvey underneath it and he would sign them. And I love this film. It is deceiving in its simplicity. There are all kinds of theories about what's going on and why Elwood is seeing Harvey. And I don't want to ruin it for you if you haven't seen the film. But there's a whole conversation about mental illness and the way that we respond to it, alcoholism, but also kindness and compassion. And there's a line in this film that Elwood says at a certain point, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically says, there are two ways to be in this world. You can be incredibly clever or incredibly kind. And for a long time, I tried it as being incredibly clever. And I recommend kind. He is just one of these people who's moving through the world, and he is kind to everyone. And it's a really deep film. It's listed as a comedy, but it is a really deep film. And there is something about Elwood that is very similar to Mr. Rogers, except Elwood likes to go to the bar. But when I was a kid, I used to love Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I was rapt. I loved when Mr. Rogers came on. And my mother could not understand. Like, I remember when I was a kid, she just did not get it. She thought it was so boring. Here's this man, like, middle-aged man walking through the door singing about being neighbors, and we're all neighbors, and won't you be my neighbor too, and like taking off his sport coat or his raincoat if it was raining and hanging it in the closet, and taking out his cardigan and taking off his like street shoes and putting on his sneakers and tying them up, and like as he's doing all these things, just very calmly, like, just taking his time and not really talking about anything in particular. And meanwhile, like while he's doing that, it's a transition, right? He's teaching kids about transitions. I've been somewhere and I'm entering a space, and there's a ritual here, and we're going to take our time, and I'm so happy to see you. We aren't rushing. There's so much going on there that is so beautiful for children to learn, to grasp, to understand. The amount of attention that he is giving children while he's doing these things is incredible. And for kids like me who didn't have a lot of adults like that in my life, who were taking their time and who were really giving me their undivided attention, especially after my grandmother passed, and I wasn't getting to see my aunt and uncle and my cousins as much, it was like, I don't know, it was essential. And he would do things like take you on little field trips to the post office. You would learn how the post office worked, or, just take you around to these like little neighborhood places and teach you about how things were for other people, to think about how things were for other people. He was groundbreaking. There are so many different episodes that are famous because he grappled with topics that were scary or difficult for children to understand. And you would, as a child, trust this man, and he never spoke down to children. There was always just absolute respect, compassion. I really feel like we should all be watching episodes again. And, he's the kind of person that's a leader, that's someone who understands how to be having conversations. But anyway, so it just got me thinking about all of that. And what it is about people like that who understand how to be compassionate, and how to listen, and how to have an open mind, how to move through the world gently. And sadly, how rare that is, right? It got me thinking about one of my very closest friends in the world. She came out here to visit years ago. She got me one of those doodles that Jimmy Stewart made of Harvey one year for my birthday, because she knew it's probably my favorite film. It's certainly up there. And it's like one of my prized possessions. I am not a material person. I'm not a shopper. I don't really go in for like jewelry or, handbags. It's not really my thing. But that framed Harvey doodle that Jimmy Stewart made, it's like one of those things that I just absolutely treasure. She came out to visit whatever year it was that The Passion of the Christ was out in theaters. And I know that because we drove over to the Grove. I had taught a class. She took the class. We got in the car and we just decided we were just going to like drive over to the Grove and see what was playing. And so we walk into the theater and we ask the woman behind the counter, like, is there anything about to start? And that was the only film that was about to start. And this is before all the like horrendous stuff had come out about Mel Gibson and how he, beat his wife and was a horrible racist. And, no one knew that yet. And she said, oh, The Passion of the Christ is about to start. And so I said to her, have you seen it? Like, is it good? And she said, oh, yeah, I have seen it. It's really good. She said, it's about the last 24 hours of Jesus's life. And it's, she said, it's a true story. It's a cinematic documentary. And so my friend and I stood there looking at her for a long enough time. We were trying to figure, is she serious right now? And we stood there long enough to realize she's very serious. Now, there are a lot of people in this world who are not Christian, who don't believe in that, right? So it's a very wild thing to say, not knowing who you're talking to, or it's just very interesting to have that, to so confidently say to people it's a true story. It's like, it's really interesting to just be so convinced of that you don't even think about like, well, I think that, but maybe other people don't. And this isn't a documentary. This is like one person's idea of what they think happened. Anyway. So, that got me thinking about, how just the disconnect that is happening, because I see it all the time online where people who identify as Christian and therefore do believe in Jesus, right? And part of what also was on my mind was Harvey and how, I was talking about like, in the film, there's this whole thing about Elwood and how he's seeing Harvey and why he's seeing Harvey and no one else is seeing him, right? And I was saying that I choose to believe that Harvey is real in the context of this is a film and everyone is fictional and I'm not insane, but making it a joke there, but but that's what I choose without giving anything away. And that's what people do generally. People are choosing, they're trying to figure out what makes sense to them in this world. And sometimes you're choosing to believe something because that's what makes sense to you. Out of all the different options, right? You're like, okay, I'm trying to make sense of what I'm doing here or what I think life is about or what I think happens after this. And to the best of my ability, this is what I'm going to choose to accept. This is what I'm going to choose to believe. And hopefully most people understand they're choosing to believe things. It doesn't mean that that's, those are facts. These are things that people are, taking on faith and deciding this is what makes sense to me. Sometimes that's not what's happening. People are convinced that their feelings about what is happening, those feelings are facts. Those are the people, people who are kind of like on behind pulpits or who have giant platforms in any way, whether we're talking about social media, whatever it is, who are, start talking about this is how it is and this is what happens, as if they are talking about facts. Those are the people who scare me personally, because it's like none of us are going to know for sure what happens after this until we exhale for the final time. Then we'll know for sure whether whatever our feelings are, whatever our beliefs are, whatever our faith may or may not be, then we'll know for sure, right? Like either we're going to exhale for the final time and what we think happens next is going to happen, or not, so that but a lot of people that claim to be Christian and believe in Jesus, right? And believe in whatever capacity they believe. And I was saying that I saw this clip on Instagram. It's also on YouTube. It's like it's Joseph and Mary in couples counseling. I'm sharing this with you because I found it funny. Certainly not my intention to offend anyone. And I will tell you, my parents were both lapsed Catholics. My dad's side of the family, Irish Catholic. My mom's side of the family, Italian Catholic. Okay. So that's just my background, but lapsed. So there was not, my grandmother, I went to a lot of like Italian Catholic masses, midnight masses, Christmas Eve. And so when I was little, she passed away when I was 4. And after that, it would, there would be weddings, and on my mom's side of the family, funerals sometimes. But it was not, my mom was no longer following. Okay. So I saw this thing on Instagram, and it was Joseph and Mary in couples counseling, and Joseph was saying, I feel like I've been erased. I feel like I've been erased, and Mary said, well, what is it that you want me to do? The angel Gabriel showed up. He said, you're pregnant. Bam. You're pregnant by, God. She's like, what am I supposed to do? And he said, well, now you're like a star, you're like the big deal. And I'm just this sheep herder. I'm shoveling shit. If somebody were ever to like write a book about us, and she's like, no one is going to write a book about us. And I just like snorted my coffee. It was like, I just was like laughing. I don't mind, like, for me personally, I think whatever people choose to believe, I think it is really personal. And you might have grown up with faith in your family. You might have grown up with religion. You might not have. You might have come to make your own decisions. Like maybe you grew up with a lot of religion and moved away from that. For me personally, the idea of sort of like a man in the sky with a ledger who is spiteful and smiting people for touching themselves or whatever, that has never resonated for me. That just does not, for me. I totally respect everyone as long as their belief system is not harming other people. Whatever makes sense to anyone else, as long as their beliefs, they're not forcing their beliefs on other people, and their beliefs are not causing harm to other people, if it's making you a better person or it's helping you get through this world, all the respect. It's when someone's belief system starts to impinge on someone else's right to survive, to exist, to find joy, to find love. That's where I have problems. Okay. So I was talking about, people who, and I've had a lot of conversations with people over the last few years who said, I voted for this administration because I am Christian and I believe that, for example, abortion is murder. So I voted for this administration. I'm not going to vote for someone who's pro-choice. So many things for me are so problematic with that because, first of all, the number of abortions has risen since Dobbs. Since Roe was overturned, the number of abortions has gone up. And these are things I linked in the essay so you can fact check and all of that. And I always want you to do that. I don't just say things like, I want you to go and fact check. But that's a true thing. The number of abortions has gone up since Roe v. Wade was overturned. And not only has it gone up, but in the states with the most restrictive abortion bans, maternal and infant mortality rates have also gone up. So that's what happens when you vote this way, is the number of abortions goes up and the number of mothers and infants who die, that goes up. So that's my problem. Is like if you voted for this because you think abortion is murder and you want less of that, this wasn't the way to vote. It wasn't the way to vote. And pro-choice does not mean pro-abortion. It means pro-respecting women and girls. It means pro-believing everyone should have equal rights to bodily autonomy and respect. And for example, if I take a road trip with my son and my daughter, like my son's rights don't change as we cross state lines. My daughter's rights should not change as we cross state lines. They're both beautiful, equal, valuable human beings. And so that's part one. Part two, this current administration, if Jesus, Mary, and Joseph showed up today, if they tried to emigrate today to the United States, they would be deported. Under the current situation, you have, at the time, right, Joseph of Nazareth, that is the largest Arab city in Israel. So they go from Nazareth to Bethlehem. I'm talking about today's map, right? I'm talking about if they tried to come to the United States today. Obviously, this is not a real, example, but I'm trying to get a point across here. They start in Nazareth, which on today's map is located in the largest Arab city in Israel. And they go to Bethlehem, which is in Palestine, the West Bank, run by Palestine. And then they walk to Egypt, and then they try to come to the United States. Yeah, no papers. They're not getting in. The current administration would deport Jesus and his family if they tried to, cross our borders today. And it's just wild to sort of talk about, well, I'm Christian and I believe in Jesus, so this is why I had to vote for these people who, by the way, if you start going over the 10 Commandments, which I also did, thou shalt not commit adultery. Oh, well, there goes the entire administration just about. Just about everybody's gone. Like thou shalt not steal. The Trump family has pocketed $1.8 billion since he was reelected in 2024. They have pocketed in gifts and cash $1.8 billion. There's the whole thing about like it's easier for like a camel to get through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get through the gates of heaven. Like, hi, you know. So, and this is this is the part where it just gets really hard. Thou shalt not steal. You're not. There are a whole bunch of like constitutional clauses and amendments. You're not supposed to be able to take money like that when you are the president, the president's family. You're supposed to divest yourself, right? None of that has happened. These people have been violating the Constitution from day one. And so, stealing from the American people. And it's like, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not, covet like thy neighbor's goods. I mean, there's just so many glaring problems. They're not doing well with any of the 10 commandments. They're not doing well with any of the 7 deadly sins. They're not, if this is why people are like, oh, I had to vote for them because I'm Christian and I believe in Jesus. This president on Christmas Day, right, called all the people who didn't vote for him radical left scum. So, Merry Christmas. Like, that's what this person's, this is a president who made fun of, a journalist with a congenital disease that attacks his joints. Happened to go to my high school, 10 years older than I am. But, this is a man who hung out with our most infamous horror of a pedophile, in the history of our country, and his pedophile girlfriend for 15 years called the man a terrific guy, flew on his plane, lied about it later, went to parties, celebrated holidays with him, videos of them laughing together and photographs. And, you can't spend 15 years with someone, talked about how he likes them young, and like he knew what was going on. And even just a few months ago, okay, when everyone knew, there's no question anymore. Like, the man had been convicted. Everyone knew who he was and who, Ghislaine Maxwell is. He got her a sweetheart deal like a few months ago and took her from this behind bars where she was in a federal prison behind bars in Florida and moved her to a prison camp in Texas. No bars. She's not behind bars anymore. She's with the Real Housewives people. Sex offenders like her are not even eligible for a prison camp like that. But he got her in. Why would he do that? Why would anyone be okay with it? Why would anyone, Jesus, whose whole thing, no matter what you believe, right? No matter what variation or what your faith tells you, or if you're someone who is Christian and believes in Jesus, right? And that's why you felt like you had to vote for this. That's what I was trying to like bring into the light here. Like, what? Because Jesus would not have approved of any of that. Not any version. Okay. If you believe in the Immaculate Conception, like our friend at the Grove, who, thought The Passion of the Christ was basically a documentary. If you believe that Jesus was, a peace activist who walked the earth and did a lot of good. If you believe that it's an allegory, and Jesus is an aspiration, and whatever you believe, right? Or if you don't believe that, if you are agnostic, or if you are an atheist, or if you believe in God, but your idea of God is more like God is the energy of creation and not gendered. and we're all children of God. But, God is not a man in robes with a beard smiting people with a ledger, right? Like keeping track of who's touching themselves while the world is burning. Because that, like, really, that's what you're going to worry about right now? Or like, you know, um, if you don't believe in that, but you believe like there's something, right? There's some organizing energy of creation, and you call that God, or you believe that men wrote the Bible to control society at large, or you believe that men wrote the Bible and they took the power of creation away from women, right? The power of childbirth, the power of creation, of moving the species forward. They took that away from women and gave it to a man in the sky, no one can see. Whatever it is you believe, okay? Whatever it is you believe, I think we could all agree that the idea, no matter what you think, whether you think it's true or you don't think it's true, you believe or you don't believe, certainly everything indicates Jesus's entire purpose was to spread compassion and empathy. Compassion and empathy. That was the whole point of everything he ever said, wrote, whatever, right? And if that's the case, then there's no way, this would be a political figure he would align with. A person calling everyone scum on Christmas Day and hanging out with the absolute lowest of the low. Would you hang out with a pedophile? Would you? I would not. On your life would I ever hang out with someone that I knew was harming young girls. Ever. I would be doing everything in my power to bring that person to justice as fast as I possibly could. I mean, I would not in a million years ever socialize with someone like that. Would you? So what are we talking about here? People that felt like, oh, well, I have to vote for this because I really, if you fall into that category, I really hope you think very hard about that. These are not people who care about, these are not people who are every single thing, that Jesus ever taught. If that's what has inspired you to vote the way you voted, goes against what these people are doing on every level. There's no compassion. There's no kindness. There's nothing but cruelty. And, and then we have a vice president saying like, white people do not have to apologize for being white anymore. I mean, that was like, I just couldn't even, white people do not have to apologize for being white anymore. I was like, wow. Really? Is that really what we're going to do? Is that we're going to pretend that's a thing? Because I was born and I grew up in New York City. And then I moved to Santa Monica, okay? Southern California. So I spent like the first, 28 years of my life in New York City. And I've been in Southern California since two of the most liberal cities anywhere. I went to Barnard College at Columbia University, very liberal college, right? And I mean, I was laughing, like where and when have white people ever been made to feel like they should apologize for being white? Where is this happening? Please tell me. I mean, it's never happened to me. I've never been in a situation in an academic setting, in a work setting, in a social setting, in any setting where anyone in authority made me feel like I should apologize for being white. I was astounded. It's as if, we're all like walking into Whole Foods, grabbing our carts. Oh, hey everyone, I'm so sorry. Sorry for being white. I'm so sorry. Oh, did I just bump into you? I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Like, give me a break. This is not a thing that is happening. Um what what is happening is this giant push to pretend that we don't have, some really painful, horrible things in our history. They don't want to talk about slavery. They don't want to talk about segregation. They don't want to talk about the civil rights movement and why why it was needed. They're anti-DEI. It's just they don't want critical race theory taught in school. That's what they're talking about. This idea that life is hard for white people, please, please spare me. And it's so interesting because there are times where sometimes it'll be online, it'll happen. Somebody like a black writer will write something that they like, here's something I wish white people would understand, right? And they'll write something about like something that happened, an interaction that they had, or something, systemic, or something from history like slavery or whatever. And then there'll be some white person in the comments who has to like pop up and be like, well, not me. I'm not like that. If you want white people to be your allies, like you shouldn't call all white people racist. Like we're not all, we're not. And here's the thing. It's like, or somebody will say like, well, I can't be responsible for what my ancestors did. Like, I don't want to be held responsible for that. I don't want to feel, if you are getting triggered by that as a white person, if you feel the need to pop up and be like, not all white people, that is really something to like take a look at, because I have to tell you, like, it's not about you. It's not about you. Like, that's your moment to be quiet and learn something. That's the moment to be quiet and like have a Mr. Rogers moment and try to figure out how things are for other people. Learn something, because you are walking through this world as a white person and you always have. So you don't know. You don't know what it's like to walk through the world as a black person. You don't know. But someone else is trying to tell you, who is a black person. They're trying to tell you what it's like from their point of view, from something that just happened to them. They're trying to share something with you. And it would be so great if you could just like listen and take it in and not feel the need to stick your hand up and be like, well, not me though. I'm one of the good white people. Don't say that to me. If you want me to be on your side and be your ally, don't call me a racist. I'm not a racist. I'm a good one. Like, you just made yourself not. Just be quiet. And why are you taking it like that? Why are you getting so triggered? That's the thing to figure out. Why are you taking it so personally? Why are you getting yourself why don't you just listen? They didn't say, hey, your name, right? They're trying to share something. And, I've seen that like so many times. And if your allyship is that conditional, then that's not it. If that's what you're like, oh, well, I'll be your ally, but not if you're going to make me like upset or uncomfortable, then forget it. I'm out. Then you're not really there to learn anything or keep your ears open. And you're there for other reasons. You're there to make yourself like feel good or feel better for a minute, or like, you're sticking your toe in the water, but you're not really committed to being uncomfortable. And it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay. It is uncomfortable. There are things that have happened in the history of this country that are like, they're horrifying. It is horrifying. It's awful. And, yeah, it has like long lasting ramifications, and it's okay to feel uncomfortable and terrible and heartbroken about that. Um, it's there are white people who make racist jokes when they think, oh well, there are no black people around, so I can like crack a joke right now. If nobody, I don't want to know people like that. I'm not interested in spending any time with people like that. If I happen to find myself in the vicinity of someone like that, I don't, I'm just, I'm not, I can't be quiet. That's where it's at now. And, not laughing is not good enough. It's not good enough. It shouldn't matter if anyone's there to hear or not. You're there, you're hearing. And it is, to my way of thinking, as a decent white person, I certainly feel it is my responsibility to say that is not funny. It's not funny. That's not okay. That's not funny. And if it makes everyone uncomfortable, that's fine. If I never get invited back, that's also fine. I don't care. I don't care. It's like, who do you want to be in this world? Who do you want to be? Ultimately, that's the bottom line. And that's kind of what I was talking about here with like the George Bailey, going back to It's a Wonderful Life. There's this whole thing where he's trying to get this community to work together, to show up for each other. It's not about, Potter, right? He's the guy he's the bank guy. Like, he wants the money. It's not about that for George Bailey, obviously fictional character, but like symbolic, right? That's the point. He's trying to get people to invest in each other and to believe in each other and to show up for each other, because that's what makes a community strong. And at a certain point, he has a crisis of faith. That's what happens. That's the crux of this film. And he's been trying his whole life to, there's a point in time where he wanted to dream and he wanted to travel, and he was like, wanted to get out of that little town, and he kept getting sucked back in, right? But he ended up doing all this, so much good for people, so much good for all these people, like this one life touching all these other lives and having an impact on all these other lives in ways he didn't even really realize. And we're all like that. We're all having an impact on other people in ways we realize, ways we don't realize. And you can be having a great impact on the people around you or a not great impact. It's like nobody can stop you. You're going to be whoever you're going to be, and you're going to show up however you're going to show up. That's up to you. That part's yours. You decide who you're going to be and what's important to you. But this whole idea of the bottom line, right? The bottom line, if that's what you're going to prioritize, is the financial bottom line. I mean, that's a choice, and it's one way to go. And that's certainly what's happening in Washington and with these people in this administration. That's all it is. They don't care about, we just raised January 1st, the minimum wage in California, which is the fourth largest economy in the world. Okay. So we're doing something right here. We just raised the minimum wage. As of January 1st, it's going up to $16.90, which reflects inflation. It's just, that's how we do it here. And in some counties, in some cities, it's even higher. It's like, and then in, people working in the food industry and healthcare workers are making $20 an hour. And then some cities and some counties set their own minimum wage and it's higher still. People need a living wage. I saw, like even here, sometimes there'll be a post like, oh, California's changed some laws, right? And sometimes somebody will grumble, well, now like all the, like, the costs going to go up. Like, hey, listen, people need to be able to live. They need to be able to feed their families. Otherwise they're working 3 jobs and they can't have health insurance. Like, it's like you're either thinking about your bottom line or you're thinking about the bottom line. And what I'm trying to say here is when you think about the bottom line, which is like, what kind of person do I want to be in this world? And am I going to think about my neighbors? What ends up happening is that it actually works out better in both ways. It works out better in both ways. I'm not saying California is perfect or we got everything figured out. There's plenty here to do. There's plenty to work on and improve upon. However, we are the 4th largest economy in the world, and it's not for no reason. And we managed to raise the minimum wage. When the federal government tells you it can't raise the minimum wage for reasons, the reasons are they don't care. They don't care about giving regular Americans a livable wage. Those are the reasons. It's possible to do. It absolutely is. And, the bottom line in life is like, who am I going to be? How am I going to show up? What's important to me? What do I really care about? And when you start thinking about other people, that's always the best bottom line to focus on. Like what lights you up? What are your particular gifts that you want to offer? And how can you be there for other people? That always feels better and it always goes better. And that's the truth. And when you get all focused on me, it does not feel good and it does not go well. It doesn't. Life gets very small. It gets very small and it's just kind of ugly. It doesn't go well for people. So the good news that I ended with is, first of all, it's that funny week between like, Christmas and New Year's where no one really knows like what day it is. And you can eat pie for breakfast. And there are people like Mr. Rogers in this world. There are people like George Bailey in this world. Even though he is a fictional character, it's based on real people who actually care. And there are people like Mary Bailey in this world, and in that film, there are some funny things, and I'll just kind of like end with this, but she's someone who like, she's the kind of person who can see when someone is having a crisis of faith and get in there and like, pull the best out of someone when they can't pull the best out of themselves anymore, or fight the fight for somebody when they're kind of like out of fight, or save the day when the day needs to be saved. It's like she knew in the film from the time she was a kid, she was like, that's the guy for me. I love him. I'm going to love him till the day I die. She knows that, like, as a kid, and she's not wrong. She sees this house that is just, it's abandoned. The windows are broken. Like there's nothing there. There's nothing there but the shell of a house, but she sees it. She can see it, and she's the one who fixes that house up. She does it. This film's ahead of its time. Like she's a driving force. She sees in George who he can be. And when he can't figure out what to do and the bank is like, she's the one who decides they're giving up their honeymoon money. She doesn't wait to ask for him. She's the one who holds up the money. She's the one who decides how they're going to fix it for everybody. She's a strong, smart, capable woman getting it done. And there's this scene that people get really upset about where like Clarence is showing, George what life would have been like for everybody if he didn't exist. And there's this scene where she's, it's like the worst. He wants to see Mary. He's like, where's Mary? And Clarence is like, you're not going to like it, and she's an old maid. First of all, she's like 28 or something. And she's, please. and people always get like, that's the like a criticism of the film is like, oh, the worst thing that could possibly happen is that she could be an old maid. And secondly, like, the other thing is it's like she wouldn't have been an old maid. She could have had the pick of whatever, anybody. The point is she didn't want anybody. She wanted him. She wanted him. And he even says to her there's another scene in the film where he says to her, why did you marry me? You could have married anyone. He knew. There's no confusion about whether she really would have ended up alone without him. She could have had anybody. He is not confused about that. And she isn't either. She said, I wanted you. So if it wasn't going to be him, it might not have been anybody, but that would have been her choice, not because there would have been a lack of choice. If she ended up alone working at a library, it would have been because that's what she wanted to do. Anyway, there are a lot of really good people in the world. There are a lot of really good people in the world who care and want things to be good for everyone, and don't want terrible things to be happening to good people. And that doesn't mean that they want open borders. Come on, like, please. I really need us to do better than that. There is a difference between, I just want open borders and I don't care about crime and I just what, and what we have going on here. There's a whole other world in between these two ideas that I just said, where we fix our immigration system, which has been in need of fixing for decades through both sides of the aisle, different, whatever parties running things. We've needed to fix our immigration system. It has not kept up with the times. And immigrants in our country are essential, like wonderful people. And we need to do a better job of figuring out how to, we need to revamp the entire system. And we've been needing to figure that out for decades. It's not new. Nobody wants, hardened criminals coming over the border. No one wants that. We are not removing hardened criminals from our country right now. We're removing grandmas. We're, like putting breastfeeding mothers in detention centers. Like this is awful what's happening here. This is not it. It's day workers who just trying to work in someone's yard for the day. It's like, it's horrible what's been happening here, and no due process and nothing, just masked people being kidnapped off the streets. This is not it. And so many other things, just so many other, like, women, Amber Thurman. I mean, so many people being harmed. Kate Cox and I can't even. It's just so many things that have happened here that are so painful, and just not the way that things should be. And certainly, if you're someone who believes in compassion and believes in empathy, this is not the administration for you, because there isn't any. So, but I feel like there are serious cracks in this foundation that are really starting to, I feel like this is not going to sustain. I really feel that way. I just don't, I think even people that voted for this are starting to feel like, okay, this is really not okay. And I think we can do a lot better than this, and I think we will. But it's tough right now. And for those of you who maybe you had harder holidays, because it's tough to be like, yay, right now. It's hard. I feel you. And I hope that you were able to find moments of joy and peace and, love with your loved ones, with your families, with your important people. And I'm certainly sending you a lot of love. And I really do have hope. I do feel like we can come together and we can make things a lot better than this. I have not lost faith. So, and we are all neighbors, and I think that's the people who are, the people who realize that are the people who are understanding. Like we're all neighbors, and at a certain point, we got to show up for each other. So that, and I'll see you soon. Let me know, if you need anything, you know where to find me. All right.